Oh my goodness, I have a new favorite deck. This one is so fun, but it's also so powerful. I was able to outpoint even Bounce with this one. It is truly extraordinary, and without doubt, the best Phenix Force deck you will find anywhere on day number 1. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you the complete guide to this Phenix Force deck, including the optimal sequencing, when to snap, when to retreat, as well as discussing the good and the bad matchups. According to the untapped data, Phenix Force was the highest performing deck on day number 1, which is very impressive when you consider that when a new battle pass comes out, there's also a lot of people playing direct counter decks. I queued into a whole lot of Shang-Chis and Killmongers around the rank 89 mark, which is what stopped me climbing a little bit further. If I had longer to play today though, I'm convinced I would have been able to get to rank 100 in a single sitting. The deck finished with a 56% win rate, which isn't the highest, but importantly, my net cubes was at 76. This deck, it's important to be able to retreat and just lose a cube when you don't draw really well. There's lots of different pieces you need to make this deck work, but the 8 cube potential with this one is absolutely through the roof. Of course, Phenix Force is the most important card in this deck. We completely built our deck around this card as it's brought together 2 different archetypes in Destroy and Move to make one cohesive list. For Phenix Force to work, we are also going to need some Destroy cards. And in this deck, we've gone for Carnage as well as Venom. You could honestly consider going for Deathlock instead of Carnage, because often you're only eating one card, and often you're going to be playing that Destroy card on turn number 3 or turn number 4. But Carnage is just a nice option to have because it's cheap. You can play it on turn 2 in some situations. You also can combo Ghost Spider and Carnage, for example, on turn number 4. But Deathlock could slot in instead of Carnage. It's worth experimenting with. We also then need some targets to be resurrecting with our Phenix Force, and our 2 targets are the wonderful Human Torch, which can just go to an insane amount of points, and we're then going to be Zolaing Human Torch on turn number 6. Or the alternative approach is Multiple Man, one of my favorite cards of all time. Phenix Force merging with Multiple Man is going to give you a 9-point Multiple Man, and there's more ways of buffing Multiple Man up in the deck to just get a whole bunch of points across many different locations. Iron Fist is the secret sauce for this deck and the key card to make Phenix Force pop off like you wouldn't believe. Whatever you do with Iron Fist, do not, under any circumstance, play this card on turn number 1. Every single time you do that, a baby somewhere cries, okay? It is not what you want to be doing with this card. Iron Fist on turn number 4, just before your Phenix Force, is absolutely insane. Phenix Force works in a very similar way to Hulkbuster, where it's going to merge with the card it resurrects, and then it will move after it has been merged. So for example, with Multiple Man, you're going to get a 9-point Multiple Man off Phenix Force, and then your Iron Fist is going to move Phenix Force, which is merged with Multiple Man, and therefore you're going to get another 9-point Multiple Man. So Iron Fist, if you are resurrecting Human Torch with your Phenix Force, is basically working like a 1 energy Shuri, doubling the power of your Phenix Force, or your Human Torch in this case, and then you can move your Phenix Force again on turn 6, and then Zola that bad boy to get 1 Human Torch into 2 different locations. We're also playing my Queen America Chavez. Do not cut this card under any flipping circumstances. She's just extraordinary. She's giving us the consistency we need. We want to be playing those Destroy cards early on. We want to be playing that Iron Fist on turn 4, and we want to be playing Phoenix Flame on turn number 5. Chavez also a pretty solid option to just play at points to bamboozle your opponent if they're expecting a big Zola play, and you might just be able to play around a Shang-Chi or something like that in some situations. As I mentioned, Zola is a huge option in this deck as a finishing card, and is definitely one I would recommend playing. You could also do Taskmaster for something similar, but I just found Zola to be a little bit more flexible. But Taskmaster is a consideration in this one. I just prefer the Zola, and look at this beautiful pixel variant. What a banger. I also found Doctor Strange to be phenomenal in this deck. In fact, I started with Heimdall, but Doctor Strange is doing many of the same things Heimdall does, but it's a lot cheaper, and we can play Doctor Strange and Ghost Spider on turn number 6. Doctor Strange is able to pull multiple men at once into a single location, and is just giving you more points than a Heimdall would for a significantly cheaper amount. Ghost Spider can also be played on turn 6 to create more multiple men, moving your Phenix Force, and then you play your Doctor Strange to summon as many as you can into Doctor Strange's location. I would also highly recommend playing Hulkbuster. Hulkbuster is that way to get more points onto your Human Torch or multiple man. Hulkbuster on turn 3 is the optimal situation in this deck, and then destroying your Human Torch or your multiple man on turn number 4. Finally, the 12th card is the most flexible. I was a huge fan of Iron Lad in this deck for the high roll potential, but if you do not have Iron Lad, do not panic. You absolutely do not need it. There is a whole host of cards which you could replace Iron Lad with. Forge is a interesting option. Shuri is certainly very good to double the power of your Phenix Force. That's going to be particularly strong with multiple man. I think Shang-Chi could be a huge option in this deck, as well as more expensive cards like Heimdall and Taskmaster, which I would probably avoid just because I think that's going to make your curve a little bit too high overall. Why did I decide on Iron Lad? Well, the high roll potential with Iron Lad is pretty extraordinary. If you on turn 5 and you've missed your Phenix Force, you might just slam that Iron Lad and high roll into Phenix Force. In other situations, you might be missing that destroy card and you're losing the game, but you play your Iron Lad on turn 4 and suddenly it turns into a Venom. But even hitting cards like Human Torch and Multiple Man or Ghost Spider can be really quite extraordinary. My favorite Iron Lad high roll of all, though, is Iron Lad into Arnim Zola. It is just quite incredible how good that is, because Arnim Zola usually 0 points, while your Iron Lad is 6 points, and you can even play a 2 energy card alongside it on turn number 6. So those are all the cards in their order of importance, but how do we position and then sequence the cards with this list? It's really important that we're only destroying one card because our Phenix Force is going to be resurrecting a random card. As a result, we want to be playing our Human Torch or Multiple Man into a location on their own. And you also want to tend to be safe in this deck. I'm used to playing Multiple Man in the far right location, but because you're going to be destroying it, it's going to be much safer to play your Multiple Man into one of those revealed locations where you know you're not going to have any issues. For example, if you play your Multiple Man into the right location and then Savage Land shows up where you get 2 raptors, suddenly you can't eat your multiple man on its own, and that's going to be a little bit dicey. So be safe and play your Human Torch or multiple man into a location on their own which you think is going to be safe. The other key thing is, because you're playing your Iron Fist before your Phoenix Flame, you want to be playing your Phoenix Flame into the middle or the right location so it is able to move after the Iron Fist moves it. But then also you need to be bearing in mind you want to move it again on turn 6, and then often you're going to be wanting to play Zola, so you want to be Zolaing onto an empty location with only one card there, because otherwise it's turning into a high roll situation. Similarly, if you've got that Doctor Strange, you really need to be thinking about where you're playing all your cards so you can get as much Doctor Strange value as possible. Let's talk about the sequencing. As I mentioned before, the top tip is do not play Iron Fist on turn 1. I'm serious, do not do it. I will be really if you do it. On turn 1, you want to be playing your Human Torch, or you could actually skip turn 1, because if the first location that shows up is a little bit dicey, you don't want to play your Human Torch there. You might just want to be waiting, because often you're just going to skip turn 2 anyway. So most likely skip turn 1, play your Human Torch on turn number 2, and then on turn number 3, you want to be playing your Hulkbuster onto your Human Torch. On turn 4, you want to be playing Venom or Carnage. If you don't have Venom, Venom is more points, of course. And then the Iron Fist as well. But the sequencing there is very important. Venom first, and then Iron Fist, gearing up for that Iron Fist onto Phenix Force play on turn number 5, which is so crucial. You then want to play on turn 5 your Phenix Force, of course, in a position where it can move to the left and then move back into a location which it will be on its own, preparing for that turn 6 Zola. Don't forget, if you do miss Phenix Force on turn 5, that is the perfect opportunity to try and get your Iron Lad high roll and hit your Phenix Force. If it whiffs and it misses, you can probably just retreat, but then bang, if it hits, you're looking good and might be getting those 8 cubes. Of course, on turn 6, after you play your Zola, you just want to cross your fingers and pray to baby Jesus that your opponent does not have a surprise Killmonger. The other approach with Multiple Man is also very strong and is going to outpoint most decks, but decks like Bounce and Lockjaw can definitely overpower the Multiple Man approach. Multiple Man is less susceptible to Killmonger because Killmonger doesn't hit it. It can be Shang-Chi though, but often Shang-Chi isn't going to be enough on its own because you're going to have multiple men in all 3 locations. On turn 1, you can play your Human Torch if you have it, otherwise just skip. On turn 2, you want to play your Multiple Man again into a safe location. Turn 3, again, Hulkbuster is the money card on turn number 3. Chavez, of course, increasing the odds of us finding it in time. Turn 4, the exact same, Venom or Carnage, plus Iron Fist preparing for that Phenix Force, but then turn 6 is where things get quite different. You can go for a Zola play onto the Multiple Man, but I found the optimal approach is with Doctor Strange, and this is why I'm not playing Heimdall. Doctor Strange just does the business. You want to be moving your Phenix Force, of course, on turn 6, and then playing your Ghost Spider to move your Phenix Force back somewhere, and then your Doctor Strange to pull as many multiple men as you possibly can. It can pull up to 3 if the location is empty, but usually you're only going to be able to pull 2. It is pretty devastating, a little bit mind-bending over exactly how to position things, but with a little bit of practice, I'm sure you will get there. We're going to talk about when to snap and when to retreat with this deck because it's going to be crucial to climb. But first, let's discuss the good and bad matchups because that is also going to be a huge consideration in when you're snapping and retreating. As I've mentioned quite a few times, I think this deck is very competitive into both bounce and lockjaw. There are some exceptions though. For example, if you're playing against bounce and they play Spider-Ham on turn 1 and it hits your Zola or your Phenix Force, you probably just want to retreat and accept your 1 cube loss. I also found that it's pretty strong into lockjaw decks and can outpoint those, but do bear in mind some of these lockjaw decks do play Killmonger, and that is going to make the matchup a little bit less favorable for you. The bad matchups which come to mind are Sarah Control, pretty much anything with Killmonger, Shang-Chi, Invisible Woman is often a telltale sign, and you can really get a good read on if your opponent is playing Killmonger depending on some of the cards that they're playing. For example, if they play a Nebula, you're going to be pretty safe to assume that your opponent doesn't have Killmonger. However, if they play Invisible Woman, chances are your opponent has a Killmonger. Shang-Chi, of course, is this deck's other worst nightmare, but also lockdown decks with cards like Storm and Professor X can be a big issue for any kind of movement deck, particularly if they storm on the far right location. That can be problematic. However, I did have a decent few wins against those decks, but I think overall pretty bad matchup. I think Silver Surfer is also going to be a very strong deck into this, and a deck that you're probably just going to be happy losing a cube or 2. That's because Silver Surfer decks often can play Cosmo, Killmonger, and just a lot of cards which are a pain in the backside for a deck like this. Now we've discussed some of the strong and less strong matchups, let's talk about when to snap and when to retreat with this deck. The snapping is more simple. I think snapping is when you have a nice curve. So for example, you might have either Human Torch or Multiple Man. You have a way of destroying it. You have a big payoff card like Zola or Phenix Force in hand. I like to snap early and aggressively. There's also a lot of locations which are very, very good for a deck like this. Lots of movement locations can be really good, but also the Venom, the Hulkbuster are extraordinary with locations like Cloning Vats and Sinister London. Of course, there's a lot of bad locations for a deck like this. Something like Lamentis or anything which is destroying cards can be a little bit scary for Phenix Force. Also, it's important to bear in mind that if your opponent plays Yondu against you, your Phenix Force can resurrect that card which was Yondu'd. Do not get fooled by that. The most important retreats are when you're expecting Shang-Chi and Killmonger, because those cards are devastating, but it's not always easy to spot them, and you're going to have to accept that sometimes you are going to lose a few 8-cube games to those cards. I think it's really important to not over-fear cards like Shang-Chi. Even if you anticipate that your opponent is playing Shang-Chi with telltale signs like Zabu and Invisible Woman and Sarah, bear in mind, in an average Marvel Snap game, your opponent is going to be left with 3 cards out of 12 in their deck at the end of the game. That means 25% of the time, your opponent isn't going to draw that Shang-Chi, even if they have it in their deck. I would recommend, if you're really expecting your opponent has Shang-Chi, to retreat, but in other situations, you can take that risky stay for 8 cubes, and overall, okay, you're going to lose some, but overall, it's probably going to work out in your favor. If you're just retreating all the time, you're losing to Shang-Chi, you're not going to get any cubes with this deck because you're pretty much always losing to Shang-Chi. It's also possible to dodge Shang-Chi with some intelligent movement where you might not move your Human Torch because you don't need those amount of points, and then you just place something else into a different location. There's a lot of things that you can do to try and bamboozle that Shang-Chi. Often with Human Torch, you have so many points, it doesn't even matter, so do bear that in mind. Another key time to retreat is if you get spider-hammed or if you don't draw particularly well, just try and lose a cube or two. For example, if you don't have that Human Torch or Multiple Man early on, you're not able to destroy them. If you slam your Iron Lad in a hope to high roll and it whiffs, don't be afraid to retreat for a cube or two. Another thing that I want you to bear in mind is bounce decks do outpower this if you go for the Multiple Man route, but if you go for the Human Torch route, you are possibly going to outpoint them unless they play Killmonger, which some of them do, mostly they don't though. Okay, and when should you snap? Well, when locations are looking spicy, because there's a lot of really good locations, as I previously mentioned. If you have a nice looking curve, if you have a bit of intel over your opponent's deck, let's say they play a Nebula on turn 1, and you're going to be going for something like a Human Torch, not going to play Killmonger, you could consider snapping, although the lockdown decks can be a little bit of a problem, and Nebula often in lockdown. But just kind of try and get a feel for what your opponent's playing. You don't want to snap too early in case that it's an obvious Sarah control deck or something like that. But even if it turns out that it is a Sarah deck, just accept that you got a bit unlucky on the matchup. You had a nice hand, you snapped, and you move on. I think it's really important to be aggressive with your snaps in Marvel Snap and just accept that sometimes you're going to snap and then retreat a bit later. That is the ultimate guide to Phenix Force. We're now going to watch some gameplay from my climb. I hope you guys enjoyed this style of intro. If there's anything you think I could improve on in these, that you think I didn't discuss, which I should for next time, please let me know in the comments below. Give the video a like and make sure you're subscribed. Yeah, Zola's a juicer. Oof. Speaking of Zola being a juicer, hello. What do we do? Let's get some stats on the board. Looks like we're fine. We'll snap with them only having Daredevil on the board. They might have a bunch of zero cost cards, though. It's possible. Okay, there's a lot going on here. So we want to move Multiple Man. And then Ghost Spider it back, probably. And then Doctor Strange. But then the question is, where does Zola go? So when I move Multiple Man, I think this is still our best bet. Could leave an empty lane for Chavez Zola. This is so many more points to go Ghost Spider Doctor Strange. Maybe it's not even though. I don't even know if this was correct. The Zola's actually not that good, is it? Because the right's full. Oh, is it? Is it full? Okay, big brain. I played it perfectly. I was thinking about that at one point, but I forgot about it at one point also. Pretty impressive stuff, though. What a banger of a deck, honestly. It's just so good. Shuri's Lab's really good. We're going to snap. Hulkbuster's the money card. Yeah, it's quite possible it was a bot. You're not mistaken. I don't think we want to play Ghost Spider or Doctor Strange until turn 6. I think they're like our ideal turn 6 plays here. There's also therefore an argument. We'll just take the Venom now. There's an argument to wait with the Venom, just in case I hit, for example, Hulkbuster. But I want to Hulkbuster this turn, so I'm just supposed to take the Venom. They take our Chavez. Most people in other streams saying Phenix Force is worst season pass card. Yeah, I mean that's why you guys are here. You get the good decks. Now, unfortunately, the Iron Fist with Shuri's Lab is pretty bad at this point, so I think we actually hold on to it. We just skip. We'll take Phenix Force. Yeah, Nick Fury is the worst season pass card for sure. Phenix Force is great, though. Like, the card's just good. The ceiling of it is just insanely good. And I think that was pretty clear to me before the card was even out. I believed in the card. As soon as I started building decks for it yesterday, I had a lot of belief. $24 multiple man. Wow. Iron Lad is Carnage or Human Torch, so we're not interested. GG. This is for rank 80, maybe? I think they're going to concede anyway. So I don't think it's quite enough. I think we needed more than 4. It might be for 80, though. There's not enough space, this damn rock. Doctor Strange, finally the man, by the way. Really, really good to see. This is always what he's been best at, is moving multiple man. But I just cut him from so many of my decks. I'm so happy to see him back. GG. Wow. Not bad, eh? This Human Torch positioning was really silly. Okay, we could... I don't know. I don't know what to do. Let's just slam Iron Lad. We should probably concede, truth be told. Having said that, there's actually a lot of good hits off Iron Lad here. Phenix Force is probably the worst. Nice. They look like a Killmonger kind of player, so I'm going to Venom. And then we're going to slam the Zola on the last turn. Concern is that we still get Shang-Chi'd. Carnage left is also a line we could take. Because the Venom is going to eat the -8, innit? For 8 cubes, baby. Venom Zola. Nice, let's go, man. Let's go. We'll try and commit a little bit towards the raft. I'm not sure how it's going to work for us. Hand is almost snappable, especially the fact that our opponent is a Deadpool player. With the utmost respect, I don't really fear them too much. I think with Zola, we probably would prefer the Human Torch. Then again, Killmonger. I really hate the current like series drop stuff that's going on. The lack of intel, of knowledge is very, very lame. Alright, let's just see what happens with Hulkbuster. I think I would prefer multiple man because of Killmonger. Oof. Okay, I mean, the Killmonger's come through prematurely, so this is actually more than fine for us, because now I just res it with Phenix Force. We're sweet. Yeah, we can play the Doctor Strange now, because we can just Zola the dude. No, I don't think they did announce Serious Drop. I'm not going to run. We have... Oh, okay, that's actually rather intimidating. They have a 0-cost card. So is there ever a world in which we don't Zola here? Because there's also a lot of value to play like Ghost Spider and Doctor Strange, you know? It's probably better value, in fact. We can play... So we can... Yeah. I think it's better value not to play it. Because we can go Ghost Spider, Doctor Strange, Human Torch. So we move one of them each, so we get 2 24 pointers. Or we get a 48 pointer, in fact. So let's Ghost... Oh no, let's Doctor Strange here. Oh my god, the points. We put 0 mid. Oh, it's actually coming down to a tiebreaker because there's a 0 points mid. But surely we're going to win the tiebreaker. 48 point torch to the left. Please no Shang-Chi. Pretty please. $24 to the right. That's not a Shang. GG. Very, very nice. Mojo World's really bad for us so far. It's been one of our worst locations. Maybe we should make this our Zola location, therefore, which means I probably shouldn't be playing into it this early. Don't think we want to go Spider because it just makes my Phenix Force quite random. We want to be playing Hulkbuster on 3. Venom on 4. Not an option. Okay. Let's Ghost Spider the Venom away and play Iron Fist. We're going to set up the Zola for the left lane. That's my current plan. Oh, I thought this was going to eat the Ghost Spider for a second. Hence that strange noise I made. Oh, Panther. I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, the interesting thing is actually very bloody easy to win the flipping left location. We're kind of done goofed. Can they Odin the Zola? That would be the line, wouldn't it? Send it. Send it. This guy's such a whale, doesn't even frame break. I mean, I'm actually not even that much of a whale. I've played the game for a long time. I mean, I am a bit of a whale. But compared to other content creators, I'm very much not a whale. In fact, I'm one of the smallest whales in the content creator community, I would say. I don't spend money in the game anymore. Apart from Battle Pass. And a very occasional bundle. Huh? It is the Odin. It's not, it's Phenix Force. This is weak. This is like... Oh, the Panther does double though. Okay, it's actually not that weak. That's pretty cool. Do you know what's cooler? Do you know what's cooler? Black Panther Zola is so... Oh! This is the future, baby. Easy. This is the future. Like, which deck's better? Average, gamer, specky.